may be seated. In honor of VBS Sunday, I asked Father Stephen if it would be acceptable to tell our gospel story in the Godly Place style, and he agreed. So I'd like to invite any of the children who would like to come forward to see this story. Mr. Cameron will come up here with you. If you feel nervous, he'll break the seal. Come on, Lucy, this is a good one. Are you ready to hear a story? Let's show the adults how we get ready to hear a story. Ready? We're going to take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. I think we're ready. Let's see what I have in my basket. I have this. Guess I'll put it right here. Oh, and I have this thing. I think I should put that right. Oh, put it backwards. Put that right here. Oh, and finally, I have this. Let's put that up here. Yeah, I think I'm ready to tell a story. There is a man who is one with God, which means he is linked to God by love and linked by love to humanity. And he came to teach others how they can be linked by love to God and be linked by love to their neighbor. And he called disciples and taught them how they could be linked by love to God and their neighbor. And he sent them out to teach others how they could be linked by love to God and their neighbor. And when they taught others how to be linked by love, that chain grew longer and stronger. And they came back, and they told Jesus everything that they had said and done, how they taught others how to be linked by love. They did good work. But good work is also hard work. So Jesus told them that they should go and take a rest. So Jesus and the disciples got into a boat to go to a deserted place. A deserted place means that there was no one there, or at least that's what they thought. But as they came up upon that deserted place, they saw many people gathering, waiting to see Jesus. And when Jesus saw them, he had great compassion for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. So Jesus and the disciples got out of the boat and went to be with the people. The people wanted to be close to Jesus. They wanted to learn more about being linked by love to God and their neighbor, because being linked by love is more than just a feeling. Being linked by love means everyone has what they need. Those who are hungry are fed. And those who need care for their bodies have access to care for their bodies. And those who are lonely and think that they are forgotten find community. And they are reminded that God has always seen them. I imagine that those people who learned to be linked by love left that place and brought others to be linked by love to Jesus, and then shared that love with others, making that chain stronger and longer throughout all of history until it came to us here today, inviting us to be linked by love to God and our neighbor. I wonder, what was your favorite part of the story? I wonder what it means to be linked by love to God and our neighbor. These are things I invite you to ponder on as Father Stephen shares his sermon with us. Thank you, children. You may find your seats.
Thanks, guys. I love following the better act, so there's nothing a bunch of people want to do right now but listen to a sermon after a beautiful storytelling with a bunch of our great kids. Thank you, Mother Brittany, and thanks, guys. Every Sunday at 9 o'clock, a whole bunch of really wonderful humans tell those stories in that style up on the third floor with our young ones. I'm super grateful to them for doing that. Early in the 20th century, a biblical scholar named William Reed sought to explain one of the unique details of Mark's gospel. What he and others noticed was that in this gospel, and in this gospel alone, Jesus seems concerned with ensuring that no one knows who he is, at least for a time. Though the very first verse of the gospel says the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, seemingly unconcerned with any secret, throughout the text, we hear Jesus say things like, see that you say nothing to anyone. After he heals a leper in chapter 1, or after he tells the unclean spirits who confessed him as the Son of God to not make him known in chapter 3. This kind of pattern happens over and over and over in Mark. Some have wondered why they are included. Again, they're not in Luke or John or Matthew. Perhaps it's to ensure that Jesus isn't arrested and crucified before the story can be told, before he can fulfill something of his mission on earth. Perhaps Mark thought that the good news needed to take hold with a few folks before turning the world upside down. Who knows? And mostly the theories put forth widely are no longer highly regarded in scholarship, though it is still something to wonder about. Regardless of if any of these theories hold any water anymore or not, regardless of what the much smarter folks in the halls of academic scholarship think, in today's text it is clear that any secret that may have been is really no longer a secret at all. And perhaps it never was. Some may have been whispering about this guy who came and healed their daughter, or who cleansed the sick guy they passed by every day and ignored, or who spoke to even the most unclean spirits. But the telephone game that was the secret of Jesus' identity has been seemingly shared with the world. The secret is out. The deeds of power Jesus has done all over the countryside are unable to be contained. A couple of weeks ago, you'll remember that we heard in our texts, the disciples sent out 2 by 2 to every village and town. They were told to take nothing with them, only one cloak, and to receive whatever hospitality was given to them. If it wasn't offered, they were to kick the dirt off their sandals and to keep going. Well, based on how our text opens today, it seems that strategy worked. Word has gotten out. They gathered around Jesus, we are told, and they told him everything. And upon hearing that evidently long list, he bids they go away with him to rest and to renew. And further, last week we heard that the political landscape of the day was not exactly settled. It was a bit dangerous, to understate it, to be those who they were in those days. Perhaps getting away wasn't just to rest and to renew, but also to stay safe and well. As good of an idea as getting away may have been, it is clear that escaping the suffering of this world for them is just simply not going to happen. Word has gotten out that the one everyone has heard about, who has healed and fed and restored so many, is nearby. Word has gotten out that the one who offers so much more than the brokenness of their world and their lives is close. I keep imagining Jesus trying to find places to dock his boat, thinking he is going to get off the boat and onto the shore for a retreat, only to find that once again the crowds not only saw where he was going, but they beat him there, swarming from every direction possible. Desperate and yearning for relief from all of the suffering of their lives, and convinced that this is the one who promises another way and release from all of that suffering, they continue to bring themselves and their loved ones before him. They laid people anywhere he went before him, convinced of the promise that they too could be healed. These are desperate and lost and suffering people. They have been denied justice and wellness and belonging. Just like sheep without a shepherd, they are vulnerable and exposed. Their lives are without direction, and they have had any purpose or community taken away from them. And Jesus is being surrounded and chased and pressed in on, and yet he is not bothered by them or annoyed that they won't leave him alone, but is instead moved to his core with compassion. The Greek says something like in his bones or in his gut. He is moved with compassion. Their desperate wondering, their grasping for healing and wholeness, their vulnerability and need for him is met with healing and grace and hope. Earlier I said that it was the tales of the myriad deeds of power that Jesus had done that had started to get out, that they were the secret that had leaked. However, I don't know that I agree with myself. I don't know that it's so much that the deeds of power couldn't be contained as a secret, but their effects. I mean, Jesus never tried to hold back or keep secret what he was doing. Rather, he tried to get people to not tell others who he was and what that identity promised. He knew, it seems to me, that the hope and life and healing that he brought forth for people as the Messiah, the Son of God, well, it was just that hope and life and healing that couldn't be contained. It was just this encounter with hope and possibility, with new life and wholeness, that simply cannot be kept secret. When our desperation meets hope, when we witness or even feel the impossible becoming possible, when a new way arises when every option had seemed cut off, that hope is something that changes us, that makes us new. That hope that cannot be contained becomes the story we live our lives by. It becomes the story that changes our lives and that inspires our lives and that we are called to bear witness to for the very life of this world. For hope to really be hope, the incarnational, in-fleshed hope we find in the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, it will not be held back. It is not something we can hold on to for ourselves as some great secret. It will go to the places where real folks are experiencing real brokenness and bring about healing. It will go to the places where real folks are encountering real despair and shine a bright light. It will go to places everyone wrote off decades ago and cause new life to emerge. It will go there if people who are faithful like you and me give our lives to take it there. Hope moves through the relationships and stories of our lives that know that same brokenness and despair and impossibility that the people of Jesus' day knew, and it offers a new way. Hope cannot be stopped by whatever we think it is in us that surely will cause it to turn its back. Hope seeks out those places in our very souls, in our very selves that have been written off, maybe that we wrote off, and bring about healing and wholeness and love and life. Hope is a very real thing. It can be seen and known, touched and felt, discovered and encountered each and every day, but it cannot be a secret. We must bear it for Jesus' sake to the world. in a world that controls by coercion, that forces by fear, that convinces us that a scarce, hold-on tighter mindset is the way to go. We are called to be, we must be, a people who continue to point one another and everyone we meet toward another way. That must have been quite the scene, quite the day for Jesus and his friends with all of those people coming to them. Crowds and crowds and crowds pushing in, desperate and frantic and chaotic. And yet every single person, every last one, every person who touched him was healed. Not one person was outside of that healing. Not one person who was laid before him was left desperate. It seems to me that we only have to continue to lay ourselves at the very feet of Jesus to experience the kind of hope that only he can offer. We only have to let ourselves open our hearts to encounter him more deeply, to experience the kind of love he promises. We only have to let our white knuckles release a little bit, our lungs exhale, our shoulders come down, to rest in an embrace that promises life we cannot find anywhere else. It is being promised and offered to us every single day, and we only need to let ourselves rest wherever we find it. In a world like ours that is as desperate and frantic and chaotic as the one we find ourselves in a world that capitalizes on hurting others and winning the fight at all costs, in a world in which relationship is thrown out the window in order to be surrounded by everyone who looks and thinks and votes and loves like me, in a world like that, such hope and love and life are a life-saving and life-giving balm. Let us live our lives letting the hope that is in us not be a secret. Let us live our lives letting the hope that has healed us be the story we tell and enact. Let us live our lives bringing every forgotten and dismissed and desperate place and person to the feet of Jesus. The same hope and love and life that has transformed our lives will transform theirs and will renew the face of the whole earth.